The UK is standing at the edge of a breaking point. Small boat crossings across the English Channel have skyrocketed, smashing past last year's record numbers, and inside the Home Office, panic and confusion are spreading fast. The government promised to stop the boats, but the opposite is happening. New data shows a dramatic rise in arrivals, a system stretched beyond its limits, and a department struggling to stay afloat. What's really happening behind the scenes? And how did one of the most high-profile government pledges turn into one of the biggest failures in recent memory? Stay with me, because the truth behind this crisis is more alarming than most people realize.
Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the UK's small boat crisis, a situation that's not only exposing serious weaknesses in immigration policy, but also revealing deep-rooted chaos within the Home Office. While government ministers continue to reassure the public that things are under control, the numbers and the stories coming out of Dover, Kent, and other coastal areas tell a very different story. So far this year, the number of people crossing the channel in small boats has already exceeded last year's total, and there are still months left to go. Despite harsher rhetoric, expensive deterrence campaigns, and international deals meant to reduce crossings, the flow has only intensified. Many of those making the journey come from war-torn or unstable regions, risking their lives for a chance at safety. But each boat that lands highlights another failure in the government's ability to manage its borders effectively. Inside the Home Office, the situation is reaching breaking point. Leaked reports and insider testimonies describe an environment of frustration and dysfunction. Staff shortages have left departments under-resourced, morale is at an all-time low, and constant policy U-turns have made it nearly impossible to maintain consistent operations. Case backlogs are piling up at record rates, with tens of thousands of asylum seekers still waiting for decisions, many for over a year. The Home Office was once seen as one of the UK's most disciplined institutions, but recent years have transformed it into a department in crisis. Former employees have described leadership as reactive rather than strategic, always responding to headlines instead of developing long-term solutions. And while officials scramble to manage immediate challenges, the bigger picture, how to rebuild a functional, humane, and secure asylum system, seems to be getting lost. The government's Rwanda deportation plan was supposed to be the cornerstone of its deterrence strategy. Announced with tough rhetoric and high expectations, it promised to send asylum seekers who arrived illegally to Rwanda for processing and resettlement. But more than a year later, not a single deportation flight has taken off. Legal challenges, human rights concerns, and logistical setbacks have delayed the plan repeatedly. Critics now argue that the policy was never truly viable and has become a costly distraction rather than a solution. Meanwhile, smugglers have adapted faster than ever. Using encrypted messaging apps and social media, criminal networks are organizing dangerous crossings in greater numbers. For them, every failed government policy is good for business. Migrants desperate for safety or opportunity are lured with promises of easy entry, only to find themselves on overcrowded, unseaworthy boats in treacherous waters. Tragically, the Channel, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, continues to claim lives every year. On the UK side, local communities along the coast are feeling the strain. Councils are struggling to find adequate accommodation, with many hotels still being used to house asylum seekers at taxpayer expense. Some areas are running out of space entirely, forcing people into temporary facilities. Residents have expressed growing frustration, saying they feel ignored by Westminster while their towns become flashpoints in a national crisis. For local authorities and police forces, the challenge is both logistical and social, balancing compassion with public order in an increasingly tense environment. The political fallout is also intensifying. Opposition parties are calling for full transparency, demanding that the government publish internal assessments of its border strategy.
Shadow ministers argue that the Home Office has lost control of its own processes, pointing to rising costs, record backlogs, and a revolving door of ministers who failed to deliver lasting change. Even within the Conservative Party, divisions are growing. Some MPs insist on even tougher measures, while others warn that the current approach is unsustainable and damaging to the UK's international reputation. For ordinary citizens, the picture is confusing. The government continues to claim progress, pointing to deals with France and new patrol operations as evidence that action is being taken. But the results, record crossings and mounting expenses, tell another story. Analysts say that without structural reform and long-term investment, short-term deterrence tactics will keep failing. The underlying issues, poverty, war, climate change, and trafficking, are far beyond the scope of a few political soundbites. Perhaps the most alarming part of this crisis is how normalized it's become. Each new set of figures generates outrage for a few days before fading from the headlines, only to be replaced by another record-breaking report weeks later. The pattern is clear, and unless something changes soon, next year's statistics could look even worse. Behind the statistics are real people, families fleeing violence, children growing up in temporary accommodation, and public servants trying to manage an unmanageable system. For every political argument, there's a human story. But in the noise of debate, those stories are often drowned out. So where does the UK go from here? Experts are calling for a complete overhaul of the asylum process, one that speeds up decisions, improves international cooperation, and invests in both border security and humanitarian protection. Others argue that until the Home Office itself is restructured, no policy will truly succeed. The department has become a symbol of dysfunction, and fixing it might be the hardest challenge yet for any government. The small boat crisis isn't just about immigration, it's about trust. Trust in leadership, trust in the system, and trust in the promise that the UK can manage its borders fairly and effectively. Right now, that trust is fading fast. This story is far from over, and the choices made in the coming months will shape Britain's approach to immigration for years to come. The question is whether the government will finally deliver on its promises or continue to let the chaos spiral. What do you think? Is this a failure of leadership, a broken system, or both? And what should the UK do next to regain control of its borders while protecting its values? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on the stories shaping the UK today. Thanks for watching, stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.